Well, welcome. We are so glad you're here, and we are so glad to have our wonderful guests with us today. I'm Sylvia Oberly. I'm part of the planning team for Faith in the City. And so welcome to this monthly session where we learn more about important things going on in our community related to educational equity. And there could be no more impactful group than the one that you're going to be hearing from today. Action for Equity is really setting the tone and the vision, the community vision, and a collective action for leading educational equity. And it's really the hub, the driver, the companion, and the inspiration for all of that. So we have 7 wonderful folks here to talk to us this morning, or this afternoon now, and they're going to introduce themselves as they speak, and so I won't take the time for introduction. I'm just going to turn it over to a wonderful visionary, Kelly Easton. So Kelly.
Thank you. Good evening. Wow. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Easton, and I am a co-founder of Action for Equity. I currently serve as president and CEO. Now we have a few of our other co-founders here. If you can stand up, just 2. And then our board member. We have a board member here. Okay, so I'm going to jump into it because there are several of us here, but I didn't want to just take up all of the space and sharing the wonderful work that we're doing because we have a very leaderful team, so you will hear from them. For generations, the children and families of neighborhoods such as Cleveland Avenue, Piedmont Circle, Happy Hill, and Salem Gardens, and other predominantly Black communities have struggled to strive due to intentional systems of neglect and disinvestment made possible by policies that perpetuated harm, such as policies backed by the war on drugs that targeted and criminalized Black men, women, boys, and girls during what we now would consider a public health crisis. This was not 400 years ago. This was just 40 years ago during our lifetime. And it's not just policies that delivered us these conditions and the symptoms that ensued as a result of poverty. No, we must also examine the extractive research that pathologically pilfered our communities of data, leaving behind a spirit of apathy among expectant participants who were promised benefits and for their families and their neighborhoods. Instead, they received little from promised grants and other government initiatives. Millions of dollars have been spent and continues to be dispersed and granted. Nevertheless, we have yet to see the tide turn. I don't share these sentiments merely to be provocative. No, I am acknowledging the realities of our communities and simply drawing your and our attention to patterns grounded by the status quo of acceptance. In order to redress the outcomes of policies such as redlining, the systemic segregation that took place and continues to take place within our school buildings, and those fueled by the war of drugs, we must utilize that which we have studied during our book clubs, that which we have learned from university-sponsored events, and from conversations such as this to strategize. This is about strategy, and not in ways we felt comfortable doing before. No, this time around, we must abandon our comfortable tables of exclusiveness, and we must build new tables where conversations are challenging. They are challenging because those tables are not simply spaces to discuss the marginalized. These are tables built by and spaces curated by the marginalized. We must also craft new tools to radically implement these strategies. Tools designed specifically for the purpose of realizing new systems of belonging and whole child development. We must also disrupt mental models and shift cultural paradigms with both faith and courage. Because if we're ever going to move past lip service and truly thrive together, we must and we shall take on new ways of thinking and new ways of being in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. This goes beyond investment, and we do need investment. Action for Equity need investment, but it goes beyond investment. Again, this is about strategy. This is about strategizing the war on poverty. With those at the place of urgency and placing a demand on the collective, innovative, and transformative leadership from our youth, our business community, our mayor, our city council, our county commissioners, our school board, ourselves, and the ones sitting beside you. This sort of tenacity undoubtedly places a burden on nonprofits who exist to bring about change in our community. Because if we are really doing it right, we'll be working ourselves out of existence. With that, it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce the brilliant leadership team of Action for Equity, leaders who wake up every day with the mission to work themselves out of their very own jobs, because they are purposeful, passionate, and they are accountable to our cause. So next up, we'll hear from Ms. Shantae Graham.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. My name is Shantae Graham. I am the founder of Affinity Crisis Supports, and I am the coordinator and director for Full Circle Mentoring. We're kind of the new kid, we are kind of new in going into a community setting, but nonetheless, we are doing the work. We're the boots on the ground, and we are doing the most and making the connections with our families. So with Full Circle Mentoring, there's myself as the coordinator, and there are another whole child health coordinator as well. We have a team of 4 mentors who you see here that make sure every day the needs of all of our youth and families are being met at their baseline. Full Circle, we have many different avenues that we use and tools that we use to make sure that all of the needs are being met with our youth. First and foremost being the SEL daily lessons, social emotional learning, because we do understand that we have to make sure that, all of our youth are able to present and understand self-awareness to be able to go out and thrive in our communities. We have a daily system or a weekly system where we're doing family check-ins, because most importantly, as long as our families and our households are doing well, we understand that makes better youth in our community. They're able to go to school every day and learn. They're able to bring their best selves to their community as well. And we're also doing community connections, which is we're trying to make sure that each and every youth that we come in contact with, they are being exposed to activities outside of their own communities. And so right now our focus is the 27105, 27101, the east side of Winston-Salem. And so any resources and connections that we have there, we are trying to make sure that our families are connected to those, whatever that may look like. So right now we have created, partnered with Greater Vision, a dance company. For most of our girls, these are first time experiences. They've never been a part of creative dance. Our boys we have formed a basketball team with our boys. This is the first time most of them have played any structured actual sporting, and so that has been a joy to see. Sometime, we probably 3 games in, but they have been out there. I think our record is 2-1. And last week we had a really tough game. It was tight. But even nonetheless, whether it's a win or a loss, they're gaining skills. They're learning a team build. They're learning to be respectful and show humility. And so these are the things that we want to be able to expose our youth to across the board. With our family check-ins, we have had the opportunities to assist 2 of our families with employment. We have 3 families that are right now going through a process for permanent housing outside of low-income housing. They're working their way up the ladder with employment and trying to connect them to the correct resources to become homeowners. We also have had opportunities to connect some of the kids that we are able to identify with mental health needs. We want to make sure that that is first and foremost, because we do understand the importance and the struggle that mental health is attacking everybody with nowadays. And so we don't want to turn a blind eye to that. We want to make sure that we are addressing those needs as well. So we do have community partners that we are resourcing those families out to. This is my favorite part, because we want to make sure, again, that we are addressing our youth, whole child, whole family, from A to Z. And a major part of that is being able to connect with our schools. So myself having a social work background, I have been able to have good conversations with the entire team who works day in and day out making connections with the school system and their partners. And we have about 6 to 7 schools that are attached to the program where our students attend. Some of those schools are Carver High School, there Mineral Springs Middle School, there is North Hills Elementary School, and there is Reynolds High School. Each school, we have made strategic plans to go in and advocate on behalf of our youth. They may be sitting in for IEP plans, or for the just a parent-teacher conference, being able to be there to support our parents and advocate on their behalf. There may be conversation or language that's being used that they don't understand, so we're there to make sure that they are able to understand all of these conversations and know that they have support from the mentors and the staff at FCM. We have made great relationships with the school social workers at these schools, more than what's listed, but there's just a few. The CARES team has been very vital in sharing information with us so that we are able to stay connected with the needs of our youth, as well as what the need of that family or household may be. We do understand, again, that to make sure that our families, our youth are thriving, we want to make sure we're starting with the entire household, siblings included. So we have worked side by side with, again, the teaching staff, administrators, principals, CARES team, and the teachers. Here is a slide that shows the importance of being connected to community for our youth. Again, a lot of them hadn't been exposed to just the simplest things that we take for granted. Going outside of their community and being connected to actually activities that are happening day to day that some of our kids do all the time, and we don't think anything of it because it's natural to us. So these kids have been exposed to stuff, and I got a good laugh, excuse me, when our girls were, when they first got involved with creative dance, because I could turn on the radio and they're gonna dance, they're gonna bring it. They're gonna give it everything they got. But then when they were exposed to the ballet and to the jazz and to the tap, it was totally different, because it's something that they aren't exposed to on a daily. So this has been like a huge joy for me to just be able to see them tap into things that they otherwise wouldn't be exposed to if it had not been for Full Circle coming to their front door. So at this point, I want to say to you all that it really takes a village for all of our youth to thrive in our community. We all play a vital role in the importance of seeing the next person succeed, whatever that may look like. It may be as simple as, hey, I can come feed sometime, or hey, I can sponsor basketball or dance, or I can just bring my time, talent, and my treasure, and whatever of service you need me to be, I'm gonna make myself available. We all have to be accountable in success for our youth and families. It may not be happening right at our own front doors, but we all have to play that major role in making sure that everybody is getting the best having the opportunities to bring the best version of themselves to our community. So I greatly appreciate you guys. And again, Full Circle Mentoring is doing the work. We are changing lives day by day, conversations by conversations. We've had parents that could attest to it. We've had grandparents come up and say, hey, I've watched my child change since October when you guys stepped into our community. And it's just one after another, those small conversations that allow us to know, hey, we're doing the right thing here. And so I just say again that it does take a village, and I welcome all of you guys to come stop in sometime, to give us a call and say, hey, how can we help you guys meet the need? We can use you. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Can y'all hear me? I am Charlie Hainsworth. I am the new Director of Community-Based Research and Family Engagement with Action for Equity. Yeah, it's very new. I'm very proud to be in that position. And I'm gonna talk a little bit about why we do research and how I got involved in the research. So, the job essentially was to go out and learn how to do research myself so that I could help train other community members to do research in the community. And the reason why is because we need all research to be accountable to the people who we say, that we're doing the work for. And to really ensure that our goal is to drive our research through our People's Research Council, which is led by community, and it provides an additional level of oversight and accountability to the members of our community. And then we want to take the data and we want to turn it into advocacy efforts. So the community is telling us what the need is, and we want to take that and drive the change at the policy level. So it started with, I guess I came into Action for Equity because I'm a mom, and politically I have a lot of things that I'm invested in, personally for my children, particularly their education. And I met Kelly, and Kelly had all of those same passions, and Action for Equity was an organization committed to those things. And so I was tasked with, again, learning how to do research, which was completely foreign to me, aside from some small community college research projects. And I had to learn from Dr. Danny Parker Moore at Wake Forest University how to do research. And I became CITI certified through Wake Forest University, and I helped train and support my team of researchers at the time, which consisted of 3 Black parents in the community. And so we went out to the community. We collected surveys from over 60 participants in the community, parents, Black and brown parents of preschool age kids 3 to 6. And then we did some focus groups. We had a focus group with Black fathers and with Latino families. And we also did one-on-one interviews with parents to get we wanted to find out how important it was for them to have culturally affirming learning environments for their preschool age kids. And overwhelmingly, that research supported that, or affirmed that the Black and brown parents in our community needed for their children to have that start to their educational path that affirmed who they were, affirmed their culture, and their community. And so we have a report out now of our findings, and you can find it on it's the People's Research Council, thepeoplesresearchcouncil.org. and you could read that report of our findings on there. And so we hope to continue to drive those recommendations that came directly from our parents to achieve change in the building of what we hope to be universal pre-K for children here in Forsyth County, and that these recommendations be at the foundation of the policies that shape what that looks like. And so because I gained that experience for the first time doing research, I was asked to train and lead a team of 9 Black mothers who live here in the community to investigate what is happening with Black infant and maternal health. Why are Black women dying at rates that women die in third world countries? And why is the system that is in place not adequate in stopping that from happening? And so we have gone out to the community and heard from Black mothers, pregnant, postpartum, about their experience, and we're still currently compiling data and analyzing that so that we could essentially get to the root of what Black mothers are experiencing when they interact with our local healthcare systems, and how does those things manifest into such horrible outcomes. And we want to do something about it. So we don't just want to find out who it's happening to and what is happening. We want to tell the story, put the people's faces to the story, and we want to go out and advocate because this shouldn't be happening. And Black women deserve healthy, happy pregnancies and to have children born healthy. And it is up to the institution to stop what is happening. And so we want to use the data to challenge the systems that are in place that are allowing these outcomes. And so, the ways that you guys could be helpful to our efforts is that community-based research is a new practice, essentially. And it is absolutely necessary, because how do you go out and get data from a community that you've never lived in, from people that you can't relate to? By having community researchers, we have the trust of our community to get to the bottom of these things, and we're most able to do it. And so the ask is that in all the spaces that you operate in, that you serve as a credible source for this work that we're doing, in the circles where people trust you the most, that you spread the word that this is important work that we're doing, and that we just need the community to support these efforts and advocate with us when we're advocating for these policies at the state and local county level. And that's it.
Hey everyone, how y'all doing? I'm Crystal, or some folks call me Dr. Ellis. Doesn't matter to me either way. It doesn't change anything about my credentials.
It's all right.
I'm gonna try to remember everything that I want to share with y'all, but I'm gonna really try to center it around the PRC, the People's Research Council, and BPI. So my role at A4E is over Vice President of Research and Strategy. Kind of encompasses community engagement, data, it encompasses program management, as well as leading a lot of the research that goes through A4E, and also expanding A4E's research partnerships. And so that is listed here: research and strategy, policy inputs and feedback, program management, community engagement, and review and reporting. So just to give a few examples of those things, kind of what I do is establishing evaluations for each of A4E's platforms. That's such as setting up evaluation models for things like Full Circle, as well as establishing evaluation models for the joint infrastructure that A4E has in partnership with Foresight Futures. And really moving to make sure there are established data standards and data maintenance for A4E. And essentially, in a nutshell, you can think of it as the in-house data person. So a little bit more about me. I'm trained in qualitative research, also have quantitative experience, and over 10 years of community organizing experience. So my passion is making sure that research is used in a way that it leads to material change and is really used strategically in advocacy. So that's at the root of how I function for A4E. Let me go on to the next slide, thanks very much. So, two of the things I want to focus on, just to give you some very specific takeaways. Right away when I came into Winston-Salem, I've been here for a little bit over a year, came in here the end of 2022 in October. So one of the things I jumped right into was the BPI report, the Black Philanthropy Initiative report with Winston-Salem Foundation. And that came out of a partnership between Action for Equity, Foresight Futures, and BPI. And so the intention of doing the report in a very distinct way where it's research, it's qualitative and quantitative research, Foresight Futures, Action for Equity, but really prioritizing a community participatory model, which is another area that I have interest in. It's just really ensuring that research is layered in a way that it prioritizes the community's perspective, that the community knows they have ownership of it, and that it produces a report that doesn't just sit on a shelf, that it's actually used in advocacy, that it actually can be used as an organizing mechanism. So that was one of the outcomes with what I jumped into, and just making sure that community is prioritized in this report. So that involved a few different stages. It involved some interviews with key community stakeholders in Winston-Salem. It involved a series of, you'll hear me say, deliberative dialogue sessions, which is essentially a civic engagement strategy. But it's really holding space for the community to actually have conversations on the data that's emerging. Like, what are some of the themes that are emerging? What are some of the assumptions that we're seeing? What are some of the things that still need to be highlighted in the research that's emerging before you get to the point where you have a final report? So that's making sure that you're increasing the community's accessibility to participate in the research, not just at the front end and not just at the end when you start to bring the report out into the community. So this is one of the things. Should be a link that we can provide to this report, but if you just want to, write it down real quick, it's bpireport.org. So that's one of the links I want you to remember. The second one, yeah. So, and this is a little bit more about the call to action. So the other thing that I jumped right into was leading the collaborative effort to produce a shared research infrastructure between Action for Equity and Foresight Futures. And you heard that was one of the things Charlie touched on a little bit, and it's essentially an infrastructure that wants to prioritize community direction and community ownership over research. So the intention behind that is it's a direct response to how research can be extractive, to how research can be unethical, and how research kind of does not respond directly to the need or directly to the communities that is prioritizing or that are the field of inquiry. So that's the People's Research Council. The other link I want you to remember is just bit.ly, /y, PRC interest. And this will take you directly to an interest form. If one, you want to find more interest about the PRC, join the mailing list, as well as just get more information about some of the projects that are functioning through the PRC. And Charlie touched on this a little bit as well. So the way the PRC functions, you heard me say that it's a response to extractive patterns, unethical patterns of research, ensuring the research leads to advocacy and that it's accountable. One of the ways the PRC does that is that it has a community cohort of folks that's representative of the county, representative of folks that have been historically impacted by harmful research practices in the county, and putting them into spaces where they can give direction over some specific research projects. So right now, the projects that are in the PRC are, it's interacting with the By Mothers work, it's interacting with the priority work, it's also interacting with one of the Foresight Futures projects. I know the name has changed a little bit, It was originally a survey panel and now it's like ethical data collection. And then there's a project around SAMHSA, which is the work in partnership with Foresight Futures Action for Equity and Crossmore. So those are the 4 projects that are functioning through the PRC right now. And I'm always working on the back end to expand what those partnerships look like, expand the projects so that we are moving towards having more community oversight over the projects that happen in Forsyth County. I know I said a lot, but again, the things that I want you to remember are BPI report, and then make sure you fill out this form linked here. It's like bit.ly/PRC interest, and you can sign up there. It'll have you can enter your email, phone number, you can join the mailing list. So if anything that I just rambled off is missed, you can learn more about that by joining that link. All right, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's important to always keep in mind that the essence of who we are, Action for Equity, comes down to policy and advocacy. The origins of Action for Equity, of course, go back to the Action for Ashley campaign. And we quickly realized in doing that work, fighting for that one school, that the issues that surrounded all of what was going on with Ashley and why we needed a new school, why we needed to shine a light on Ashley were so much bigger and so much wider. And it was from those conversations that Action for Equity was birthed. All of this work that these lovely ladies have outlined for you that we are doing ultimately all comes down to what policies we need to advance and how we need to advocate for them. And so it's my joy and privilege to coordinate some of this work here with A4E. And so I want to talk to you for a few minutes. I told Kenny he's going to have to snatch me at some point because preachers preach. But talk to you for a few minutes about this educational equity work from the policy perspective. Equity has become now a catchphrase and a key word. Everybody and their mama's talking about equity. That doesn't mean that everybody understands what equity means or understands what it means to move in ways that actually foster equity. Because once you appropriate a word, then everybody can start using it. We've seen that with MLK, and we've seen that with so many of our great leaders in the work that they've done. So it's a question of what do we need to do? And first and foremost, it's about leading with Leandro and fully funding our schools. How many people here are familiar with the Leandro case? That's good. That's real good. All right. We actually have a one of the only, from what I understand, county-based websites dedicated to the Leandro case, forsythleandro.org. So for those of you who did not raise your hands, are not that familiar with the Leandro case, I want you to go and check out that website, forsythleandro.org. We've just recently cleaned it up and updated it with some of the latest information. This is a case that goes back 30 years, invoking the North Carolina Constitution, which states that all children in this state have a right to a sound basic education. And what we know is that it takes resources to provide a sound basic education to our children. And the North Carolina State Legislature has never fully funded our schools. If you were to look at statistics in terms of percentages of GDP, it's a very much in the weeds type of stat, but if you get into percentages of GDP that are spent by the state, out of their state GDP, on public education, North Carolina ranks 49th out of 50th in the entire United States, okay? So we have a long way to go, and the Leandro case is central to that. One of the things that we are talking about a lot of late is the ways in which the full funding of our schools is essential to providing the resources that are needed to end exclusionary discipline. We need to collapse the school to prison pipeline that for decades has been disproportionately sending black and brown boys and girls into juvenile court system and ultimately a trajectory on to jail. What we understand as we talk about this more and more is that there are sets of practices that have to be integrated into the culture of teaching, the culture of the way we build our school environments. And so we have had, thanks to the progressive leadership of Tricia McManus and others in the district, a code of conduct in place for the past several years that is invested in restorative practices, invested in social and emotional learning, invested in alternatives to suspension. It takes resources. They hired 20 new people. They repurposed other positions. They provided new types of programming, things that they cost money. Most of that has been funded by COVID dollars, by ESSER dollars, by money that came because of the pandemic. We know that money's about to be clawed back. Whatever isn't spent being clawed back. And so the question is, where does the money come from to fully implement this? Our superintendent's estimate is going to take $5 million to fully implement this. Where does that money come from? Nobody has a plan right now. The plan is Leandro, that would bring at least $40 million into this district. And actually, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's much more which could fund some of these positions and help to move this work forward. We want to reduce exclusionary discipline. That's key to closing the achievement gap. It's also key to making our schools safe. The power of the work that Shantae was involved in a couple years ago with the Embedded Mentor Program was those 4 schools that we were working in. Immediately upon these teams of mentors coming in within weeks, school climate is improving. School board members were sending people to visit those schools only on the days when our mentors were in there because the schools were calmer. Why? Because you need people in this space that don't have to worry about the teaching, can focus on being a support to the kids who are there. All of this is connected in terms of a policy piece to ending suspensions for grades K through 3. We're talking about children 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. What reason in the world could you have for kicking a 7 or 8-year-old out of school? Right? Somebody said, well, what if they assault you? As one of my buddies said, my toddler assaults me every day, multiple times in a day. This is what children do. So it's absolute rank foolishness for us to think that we are accomplishing something positive by kicking a 6, 7, or 8-year-old out of school because they're acting up, okay? There is a policy that was passed in New Hanover County in very inhospitable circumstances, thanks to the great work of Love Our Children, ending K through 3 suspensions. We're in conversations with our district leadership here, who's very supportive of it, to get the same thing done here. There are conversations happening on the state legislative level about putting together legislation to end pre-K through 3 suspensions across the state. We know who's in Raleigh, so we know that's going to be a high hill to climb. But it starts in the local communities. We fought to get Tricia McManus in the position that she's in right now. We have a laboratory for progressive work that we can do that can then create a template to take out to the rest of the state. So look for this coming down the pipe. We've got to finish the work of Action for Ashley. It's the beginning, it's the bread and butter. Because of the work that the Action for Ashley campaign has done, the land has been purchased, $100,000 in architectural design money has been allocated, but we still haven't got the school built because the money isn't there to build the new school. We are working on the plan to make that happen. Be on the lookout for that because we are determined to finish the Action for Ashley campaign. Final thing I'll mention on this slide is our policy agenda. We have a 10-point policy agenda. You can go online to our website, Action for Equity, the number 4, equityws.org, and you can pull up our 10-point policy platform. It includes ending exclusionary discipline. It includes finishing the work of Action for Ashley. It includes advocating for culturally affirming environments. It includes closing the achievement gap and so much more. Go on to the next slide. How we do it. How we do it. Chuck, you're going to like this one. It's all about shared stewardship. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. You may not know all of the children who are impacted by exclusionary discipline, but you need to think of them as your own children. How would you want your child, your grandchild, your niece, your nephew treated in a situation involving discipline in the schools? It is the social distance between us that allows us to not think about other people who are not like us or do not come from the neighborhoods where they come from. But since I'm in a church, I'll remind you what Jesus said from the cross. Woman, here is your son. Son, here is your mother. They were not kinfolk, but he made them a family. Why? Because that's the mentality we have to understand they are children first. They are our children, and we have to look out for them like we would the ones that live in our house. There can be no more silos. Touch your neighbor and say, no more silos. There are only 250,000 people living in Winston-Salem. I grew up in New York City, a city of 7 million people. We have no excuse to be working in our little corners of Winston-Salem, many of us working on the same stuff, but not talking to each other or working together because we're busy chasing after funding, or we had an interpersonal experience that didn't go well with that other guy working on the other side of town on the same situation. So now we don't like him and we don't want to work with him. And meanwhile, the kids are getting kicked out of school. The achievement gap is growing, and we are coming up looking bad on all the indicators of economic development and success here in North Carolina. So no more silos. We have to work collectively together, talk together, strategize together, build together, focus on best practices and cross-sector implementation. And part of the no more silos is no more egos, edging God out, set aside the egos. It don't matter whose name is on the thing. It don't matter whose church name is on the thing. It don't matter whose organization's name is on the thing. If the thing is the right thing to do, that's what we need to be concerned about. We have got organizations all around this community. I could mention a whole list of them that have figured out effective practices to reach the children who account for the 5% of students who are at the source of the center of most of the disruption on schools. There are 17 schools in this district that account for 80% of documented disciplinary infractions. And there's just a handful of kids in each of those schools, just like in most communities that are riddled by violence. There's 25 or 30 or 40 folks who are involved in most of the violence. Got to work together, leverage those best practices, because there are people and organizations that have figured out how to reach those kids, how to reach those folks, but they don't have the support they need. And other people are trying other things that don't work over here in their silo. If we're working together strategically, we're getting together and say, hey, this thing is working, then this is what needs to happen. If you want to have an effective mentoring program for youth, you better have transportation in place. Because if you can't get them to your program, they ain't going to get all of the curriculum from your program. And you better have money for stipends, because anybody who's raised a middle school child, like my son, knows as soon as they hit middle school, what they want? Money, money, money. Where can I get some money so I can buy my own thing? If we don't give them the right opportunities to get money, they're going to look for other opportunities to get money. It's a simple thing. But have that conversation with funders across the board about we need to have stipends for every single one of these programs to pay every single one of these kids, and you may have to start pushing a conversation. But if we're doing this collectively, then we're coming with a united front, okay? Just say no to legislation that resists progress. Touch your neighbor and say, House Bill 188. House Bill 188. House Bill 188 was filed almost a year ago. It passed the House. It's in a committee in the state Senate. And it would repeal parts of North Carolina General Statute 115C 390.2 and 5 that support all of the progressive practices that we're trying to put in place here in Forsyth County that are invested in restorative practice and research-based, evidence-based approaches to dealing with children who are having trouble because they're dealing with unresolved trauma and are acting up in schools. These are the folks you got in Raleigh trying to repeal progressive pieces that are right there that say every county should have a code of conduct that is invested in alternatives to suspension and research-based practices and behavioral interventions. And we got people sitting up there in Raleigh trying to take that back so they can get tougher on the kids in these schools. It don't make any kind of sense. All right? Secure the resources. We need to do what we need to do. She's telling me to sit down and shut up. Go to the next slide real quick. My brother's keeper, Winston-Salem. The MBK Equity Framework is a blueprint for local leaders to build a community that wants to demolish the inequitable structures that have failed our youth and build a magnificent new foundation for where there is equity and opportunity for all. It's based on the collective impact model, everything that I've been saying, working together strategically and intentionally. Next slide, please. So, call to action. HB 188 is one. Go home and research this, please. ncleg.gov and punch in H188. And then go and find North Carolina GS 115C 390.21.5. You can get it online. Okay? Come with us Thursday, February 22nd. Because of who's in Raleigh, okay? And his son sits on the state Supreme Court. They got the state Supreme Court to pick up Leandro again to try to overturn the decision in favor of Leandro that said, yeah, you should fully fund these schools, in the hopes that the people on the state Supreme Court will now kick Leandro back to the state legislature, which will do nothing to fully fund schools. We're coming out there to protest this Thursday, February 22nd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We are organizing vanfuls of folk. We want you out there. If you're going to caravan with us, you want to get on the van with us, we're going to march to the General Assembly. I'm going to be there leading some chants, so y'all come on out. We're going to have a Black History teach-in. We're going to have a community lunch and learn to make sure that everybody understands that we are leading with Leandro, that we care about our kids. They have a right to a sound basic education, and we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Pat Thomas, and I am Chief of Staff with Action for Equity. I'm just gonna breeze through this real quick, but really what we wanted to do today was to come and zoom in on some of the programs and initiatives that Action for Equity has been working on in our community, and then zoom back out and show you how those programs that are built in community, our tagline is community knows what community needs. And so those programs are operating in community, and then we zoom back out and we take our research models, our community-based research, the data collection that we're doing, and we use those to inform the policies that we are advocating for here in our community. So what we really wanted to do was zoom in on a couple of those programs and let you see how those are operating within community, how the research is impacting those, and how community is really in the driver's seat of these initiatives and the research and then the policies that we're advocating for as a community, and then invite you to come into those spaces to understand more about the importance of community-based research, to understand the importance of how community should be impacting these policies. And so I'm just going to breeze through a couple of our other initiatives and programs. I know that last month you all heard from Winston-Salem Freedom Schools, and Russ is here in the house. And we are serving as a fiscal sponsor and an equity partner to Winston-Salem Freedom Schools. This is just another example of something that is happening within the community. The community wanted Winston-Salem Freedom Schools, and this is something that works. So we zoom in, we do we help create the opportunity for programming in our community, get the research, show that it works, and then show the community how we can zoom this out, scale this up, make this better. This is something that works, and so we are able to use our own local data to advocate for bringing more of these types of programming and better funding for programming like this into our community. Next is the Our Opportunity 11 Heal Coalition, and this was started by a group of women that wanted to advocate for, a lot of, advocate for gun violence prevention in the community. And a lot of the women who are involved in this are survivors and victims of gun violence in our own communities. So they are doing all kinds of events and advocacy within the community. And what I really want you to hear as I'm breezing through these is the cohesion between community health and how these platforms are interacting with each other, because these are all connected. We know, as Reverend Ford was just saying, gun violence is connected to the educational equity, it's connected to the poverty. We want to kind of draw this cohesion between how all of these things are interacting with each other. The next one, Jump to the Sun, is one of our own initiatives that we started, and this is a partnership that we're doing with the school district to get culturally affirming books into the schools. Bookmarks is also a partner in this work. So we have teachers that are taking books that include Black and brown main characters, protagonists, and creating lesson plans and bringing those into the schools so that these students are able to see themselves in their work, and the teachers actually have a lesson plan and an evaluation model for how these lesson plans are working, which again is bringing back to hey, this works. We're piloting this in our schools. We're showing you the data that comes out of it. This is how this works, and this is how you can scale this up to be an effective program. Actually, can you go to the next one? So our Kijiji is also another one of our initiatives, and this is just an example of it's a let's see, how do I say this? This is a platform, a media platform for sharing good news, big news, just any type of culturally affirming conversations for the Black community here in Winston-Salem. Nisha is back here in the back of the room. She is our host of Kijiji. Okay, you can go back to Thriving Together. Okay, so those are just a couple of the initiatives that we wanted to share. Again, we had, you heard some from some of the other initiatives today, but what we really wanted to do is be able to zoom in on some of the things that are happening and then show you why we are operating these programs in the community. Now, kind of changing gears a little bit, we also, on December 8th, held a the first Thriving Together convening. This was a convening of conveners. And so, Reverend Ford talked about breaking down those silos. This is our attempt at doing that. We brought together people who are convening in the housing area, people who are convening in early childhood, people who are convening in food security. Anyone who is bringing people together to have a conversation. This is our attempt at breaking down silos. And what we have up here is just some key takeaways of what was elevated during those times. We had a great all-morning session with a bunch of leaders in the community, and these are the things that they said, that kind of rose to the surface as the cream of our problems, the cream of the crop of problems. And the Thriving Together is going to be the space where we are, and this is not owned by Action for Equity. Let me say that. This is a co-created, co-owned, not owned, it's co-run, co-led initiative, because we don't believe that any one organization can solve all of our problems. We know we've got to come into the same room together. And this is the attempt of Love Out Loud, Action for Equity, numerous other partners coming together and saying, this is a space where we're going to try to do this. So my call to action in a moment will be inviting you to get engaged in Thriving Together, get on the mailing list to hear about these upcoming things. Our next step is going to be working on a shared action plan. We're going to be visioning out, what does thriving look like for Winston-Salem? What would that look like? What would it look like if 10 years from now we said, wow, this community has made a pivot, it is thriving. This is where we want to have that conversation. So we want to invite all of you into that space to have that conversation with us. I did my call to action first, sorry. And then the last thing that I just want to share with you is a little bit about another initiative. The We Heal Together program is funded through a SAMHSA grant that Dr. Ellis mentioned earlier, and also Full Circle Mentoring is funded through this initiative. And this is just another another example of how our community is beginning to work in cohesion with each other. We're beginning to break down those silos. So this is a collaboration between the organizations you see up here to create community resilience, community healing. There's a lot happening inside of that. I would encourage all of you to just to get on and look at all the different things. I'm not going to go through it because I want you to hear from the brilliant Kenneth. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope that this has been a good little glimpse of some of the things we're doing and why we're doing them, and why we think that these programs leading to policy, leading to research are so important, and how they're all connected. So here is Kenneth.
Hello, how you doing? I'm Kenneth Reed. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Action for Equity. And today I'll be talking about our operations and the business that goes on to be able to support the work. Basically, I'll be hitting on our organizational infrastructure, financial controls, our HR, technology, and inclusive economy. So at the heart of it is our operations. Our operations is made up of an executive office, community office, and policy office. And so you've heard a little bit from everybody today. So the community office is the community-facing side. We have the policy and advocacy that comes out, and then there's the executive office that is focused on sustainability, strategy, and fundraising. So first, the accounting. It's a big thing because we know the responsibility that we have when we ask for donations, when we have grants, when we have services, that we need to be financially and fiscally responsible. So the first things that we want to make sure that we do is we have, intense expense and management, as well as billing and financial reviews. These type of things are able to keep us on top of our finances so that when we do ask for funds and that we are having programs, that we are able to sustain them. So with more internal controls, basically internal controls allows us to be able to put power in different people's hands in the organization. It allows us to be able to have handoffs and oversight. Our oversight being with our treasurer, our CEO, myself, and a CPA that's third party to our organization, just provides more accountability for us to be able to operate with the highest level of transparency. HR, which is one of the most important things because all the people here, we need to make sure that we support them. So we try to recruit and screen all the leaders and all the people in our organization, and make sure that we're providing a thriving compensation, which comes at a cost, as well as the benefits, which also are extremely expensive, but we know that we need to be able to provide these things to be competitive, to do the work that Shantae and Dr. Ellis and Charlie and Mary Pat have been talking about this whole time, and we know we take it very seriously so that we can develop the best leaders. The technology that we use a lot of technologies, project management technologies, accounting, and IT related things as far as Google and Zoom, so that when things like COVID kind of hit, it allowed us to be nimble, and also we grew through COVID, which many did not. And one of the reasons why we're able to do that is because we work remotely as well as in the office, and we can pretty much work from anywhere because of these tools. We're able to manage finances, our people, and so it allows us to be agile, I would say, using technology as our infrastructure. And now we get to the numbers. I want to go through these numbers because they're important to the organization, because of inclusive economy. We take it seriously that we invested over $130,000 in Black businesses last year. We created over 30 jobs at one time, and we invested more than $1.3 million last year in personnel alone. And these are the type of things, some of the people you see here, many you do not, that are supported by this organization, in which 91% of our funding went to Black households. And so these are the type of things that are gonna increase our economic mobility, sustain our organization, and ensure that we're here for the long term. And one of the most staggering statistics I would say is our growth. In 2019, we were at $80,000, which is our initial revenue, and in 2022, we were at 1.5 million. So our growth rate, was almost 1,800%. Some of the people that you see here today, many, as Charlie said, there are new roles, Dr. Ellis and everybody getting into these positions. It's had everything to do with how we've got here and how we're gonna get to the next level. And then lastly is our return on investment. When we kind of did a deep dive into our finances, we realized that from a $20,000 investment from the city of Winston-Salem, we were able to turn that into $5 million over the course of 4 years. So that for every dollar that we got, we turned it into $250 of impact. And so that matters a lot for donors, but it matters more for the community that we're able to take the money and use it responsibly. So that's our next day now. We have Kelly Easton, who's gonna finish it off.
Thank you. Can you please give them a round of applause? I know we are at time. Okay, 102. So I know we're at time, but I hope that you were able to experience the passion. I said right before I introduced the team that they are purposeful, that they are passionate, and that they are accountable. And I say that with full confidence. This is an amazing team. They are the best team, and they do wake up every single day understanding how important our work is. I know a lot of times people are asking, well, we don't know what Action for Equity does. Like, we're not, what are you doing? I mean, we see you doing things, but we really don't know what they are. Yeah, we have not invested in communications. Once we launched, once we shifted from Action for Ashley into Action for Equity, the goal was never to develop an organization. The goal was and still remains for us to do the work. And so with that, we realized that we have to develop infrastructure so we can bring our community along. A lot of our board, our working board at the time, which Emily, there's so many pictures of Emily at the school board because we were going to the school board, calling, coming to events like this, advocating. And it got to the point where we didn't want to look behind and see that that we're not with community, that the community is not with us, because that would really work against why we're here. So we had to take the time to develop the infrastructure, to develop those internal controls, to really understand the work that we're doing and how we're going to get there. And hopefully in the months that comes, we will improve on our communications. But the most thing is like lead with the work, and that's what we've done. And we hope that our community, that you are a part of our community, that you will continue to partner with us. Action for Equity is really an ecosystem. Mary Pat said it best, like there's no one organization that can do this. Action for Equity and Kelly Easton, we are not, we are not able to bring about the changes that are needed in our community alone. Like, that is ridiculous. And if anyone thinks that we're gonna be able to do that, if any person or any organization, church, initiative, sorority, fraternity, or what have you, think that we'll be able to achieve the results that we need in our community alone, or they have the plan alone, then they're thinking too small. It's gonna really take all of us. And so I'm very grateful for too many partners to name. But I will say that, over the past couple of months, there's been great intentionality with Action for Equity and Love Out Loud and Forsyth Promise and a group of consultants and the superintendent. And the consultant's not getting paid. Like, nobody's there. There wasn't a grant for this. We didn't have funding to do this, but there was just a great intentionality. And then this entire team, there's a lot of work, that went into this. But over the past couple of months, we have been able to understand how to collaborate. Systems, if you want to really see the results of systems change, then you look at the partnership between Action for Equity and Forsyth Futures. When I invited Adam to a meeting, he was kicked out the meeting. And I'm telling the story publicly, so he's good now. But he was kicked out the meeting because there were some issues, and I had issues with Forsyth Futures and the way that the research was extracted. People did not trust Forsyth Futures. What I would tell you is that there has been an intentional partnership and relationship building and a journey, an equity journey. There's been conversations that we had to struggle through in order to develop a partnership where there's trust to do the work that we're doing and the work that they're doing. That is systems change. Until we get to the place where we're able to partner as organizations, as leaders, where we can develop structures together, all in. We are dependent. I'm dependent on you, you're dependent on me. Until we get to that point, then we're not gonna be able to have the type of infrastructure to deliver the results that we want. So that's going to take a cultural shift. We have to shift the paradigm, and that's not easy. That's not easy in the community level, at the grassroots. It's not easy at the institutional level, and it's not easy at the macro level. But we have to invest our time and move, and it's hard. It is hard to trust when you really don't have much to look back on, to stand on, to say that, I can trust you. But until we do it, then we are simply giving lip service. So I hope that you will join Thriving Together. We do not have all the answers, and I know that could be frustrating for those who are linear. And so I'm going to end with this. And I too was once a linear person. I'll end with this. And pardon those who have heard this. But the work that we're doing, it's a type of planning, it's a type of movement work that the target at times feel like it's moving. And so a lot of times we like to pick up a rock, we like to look at where we want to aim it, and we like to throw it. And we know that if we throw it there, then we're gonna get there. We know exactly where it's gonna land. That type of strategic planning suggests that we know all the answers. We can sit down, plan it out, get our research, write it out, and then go do it. And then even as we do it, along the way, we realize it's not working, but we're still gonna do it because we gotta get to that target. Systems change is more like throwing a bird. You throw a bird, you don't know where it's gonna go. But we have to be comfortable enough to learn. So we're gonna have to have even learning infrastructure. There's so many different types of structures and tools that we need to develop because we don't have them. If we had them, then we would have developed it and we wouldn't be here today. So this is very complicated, it's very complex work. It is people-centered work, which means that all of me, how I am, loud, all afford very loud. And all of us, we have different personalities, and you saw that here on our team. But we have to start seeing that as gifts. So that means we have to understand one another and learn to appreciate our differences. And then we have to figure out how do we use those differences in order to build. And so again, it's gonna require all of us. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Knollwood.
Well, nothing I say can top that, but thank you all again. Let's give them another round of applause. Thanks for being here. Our next Faith in the City will be March the 5th, back on the first Tuesday of the month. We changed it this month to allow for many of us to go to the United Way special luncheon next week. So join us on March the 5th. Our topic then will be exploring increasing numbers of Black and Brown students who are enrolling and succeeding in advanced placement courses. And this is a key need, and so we're going to examine that and see what we can learn about that. We have learned so much today. Thank you very much. If you have not signed up to be on our mailing list, it's out in the lobby. We've got plenty of cookies as well. Thank you very much for coming.
You still here?
So inspiring.